to today's deep dive session for Marketo Engage, deep dive user group. Today we have a nice topic covering revamping your engagement, and it's going to be a deep dive specifically on one of Marketo's newer features. I think last year it made its debut, the interactive webinars. So let's have a quick look at the agenda for today. We're going to start off with just some housekeeping. If you've been to a Marketo user group before, I'm sure you know the rules, but we'll quickly run through that. Then I'll introduce you to our panel, and then we'll deep dive into the deep dive content of what we want to hear about our interactive webinars. So let's quickly go through some housekeeping slides. As you may know, if you've been to a user group before, there's just some general house rules that we like to put in place to keep this always a safe space. Primarily, those are no self-promotion, so please don't add anything in chat promoting your own services, what you have on offer. Also, please be respectful of the people that are joining. So if someone does make a question in chat, don't contact them outside of this without their consent. And if we do share a case, or maybe someone asks a specific question that's really specific to their use case, their instance, their company, please also don't take that further without their consent outside of this user group. For that one. This session is being recorded already, so if you are not okay to be on the recording, feel free to leave the session now. As I said, it is recording where you registered for this event on our the Marketo user group page. You'll be able to find the recording in a few days, also the content we share. It should also be uploaded to the user group Marketo, the YouTube site that exists as well. A few quick announcements. The first one is very nice. There is a new user group set up. So this one is specifically a deep dive user group run by champions. You may be more familiar with local user groups that you attend in your local city. We also have a very nice user group that is the champion office hours user group. So if you have any questions, you want to ask some experts about that, you can submit it and ask it to the panel. That one happens every month. But this month we have launched a new user group, which is called the Foundations user group. It is really about those core concepts and the core aspects about Marketo, not only for new users, though really applicable for them, but also great for people that have been using it for a while, just to stay abreast of the best practices, learn from others how they set up their instance in ways for the core things like programs, channels, naming conventions. It's not always going to be on the new and the shiny, but those core aspects that make an instance really great and successful added there. Oh, there's also a few other sessions that the Adobe and the product team are running. Those include a bi-weekly office hours for the new email designer. So anyone that's familiar or seen the announcement, you probably may see it appearing in your instance. There is a new email designer that exists. So there are some sessions run starting from June 4th. So those are available. Follow the QR code to sign those up. And just also to call out that coming along with these changes in the products, there are a lot more granular permissions. So it's also a good reminder, call out for anyone that is an admin of your instance, just to do a quick check of the user roles, the admin permission, or the permissions that these roles have. And they're make sure that they're adjusted to as you need with the adoption, the rollout, the implementation internally in your company of new features like the new email builder, maybe of the interactive webinars, as you'll talk about later, how to enable that for people, and some other functionality that is coming. So I've noticed that as a bit of a trend in the release notes lately, that there's often one or two things about user roles and permissions changing and becoming more granular. Also, if you're ever visiting the Experience League, that is getting quite a lot of love and attention at the moment as well. So some things changing there, particularly to call out the personalized homepage. So once you get in, you have it now, it often pops up with saying what products you're interested in, what's your skill level on these particular products. So it's started doing a nice job to create a more personalized experience and helping you find content that's interesting, relevant for you to become a better marketer and Marketo professional. You can also find some perspectives, so that's looking a bit more real-world content, peer-authored things. So that's also from people like us that are champions doing it other ways, but also from some of the product experts for there. So really good as inspiration use cases to see what's happening. And this last one I've seen popping up for myself over the past week or so, but the video playlists. So really short videos, 2-3 minutes of very specific pieces of content, just to help you explore, understand other functionality, best practices. So if you see them around, have a quick click on that. It's a nice way just to take a couple of minutes to learn something new, get some new content in. Also, just to call out that the Skills Exchange is coming back for 2025. So this is going to be the summer edition of that. The registrations will open very soon in July, so keep an eye out for that mention. I'm sure it'll be across LinkedIn. There'll be emails from Adobe. No doubt it'll also be in-app notifications in the products. So keep an eye out for this when the registrations are open, but we wanted to give you a heads up that they are there. There are, these are virtual sessions. They do some deep dives into a lot of the skills, the competencies needed for those. Is expanded this time over to 5 Adobe solutions, being the RT-CDP and AJO, Adobe Analytics, AEM and Marketo Engage, and Workfront as well. So these all are run in Pacific time. There's a note there of saying 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time, and just some call out of dates, but really keep an eye out for those, and then you'll be able to register. I think there are capacity limits to these sessions as well for that. And of course, the Adobe team would always love to know what you think about the product, specifically Marketo Engage for this. And 2 good ways of giving your feedback, good, bad, constructive, however it may be on the product, is either via G2 or via Trust Radius. So maybe not now, but when we get the content afterwards, it would be great if you could also follow these links, follow the QR codes, and just give a quick review of the product, how you're finding it, where you see maybe it could be developed better. That always is very useful for the team, if you know that. So that was it for some housekeeping. Let's quickly just go on to some intros. So hi, I'm John. I work at Accenture as a senior manager with a focus particularly on marketing technology. My background and the core competency for me has been Marketo Engage over the last, I think, 12 years using the tool, 3 times into the champion program like this. But yeah, also slowly expanding across in reach to other tools in the Experience Cloud. So it's a strong Adobe focus. Audrey, would you like to give a quick intro as well?
Sure. So I am Adrienne Babb. I work at Lumen as the Marketing Automation Manager, and I've been in Marketo for about 8 years now, and this is my first year as a champion.
Thank you, Adrian. And Josh?
Yes, I'm Josh Harrington. I'm Chief Marketing Technology Officer for Captura. We are a Marketo agency based in Spain. I've been working with Marketo for over 16 years now, and this is my second year of the champion program.
Great. Thank you all. So now over to Adrian for you. Let's get into the deep dive on interactive webinars.
Yeah. So before getting into the actual interactive webinar content, I wanted to kind of talk about some common webinar challenges that interactive webinars actually should help with. So me personally, I know I've dealt with a lot of these issues. So the first being a really taxing setup. Typically, there's a lot of platforms involved in setting up an online event or a webinar. Personally, I've used On24 or other platforms like Zoom that have to integrate into Marketo. That typically leads to like a long concept to launch time. And then once the webinar content is actually ready and put out there for promotion, there's a short lead time between the actual promotion and webinar. Another is low audience engagement. That's straightforward. People are not really engaged in the content of the webinar. They drop off. There's nothing engaging, keeping them in the event. And lastly, poor follow-up execution. Typically, there's a lot of scrambling to get content for follow-ups to registrants or to attendees. Therefore, there's a missed opportunity to create leads, nurture those leads. And then there's no repurposing of webinar content. So the webinar happens, and then there's no use of that content to get it out to anybody that may be interested following the actual event. So we have interactive webinars to hopefully save the day. So what makes interactive webinars work is that it's a feature that's actually built into the Marketo platform itself. Using interactive webinars allows you to create, manage, and deliver events on the Marketo platform, and you can use customizable meeting templates. Attendees, obviously, by the name, are interacting with others, sharing files, participating in polls and other online activities, and broadcasting their own video and audio. And then following the webinar, marketers can access analytics having to do with participant engagement, and then, follow up using a plethora of different behavior-based triggers to really keep that engagement going. So some things to note before actually setting up interactive webinars. First is that interactive webinars are only included in 3 different packages of Marketo. So that's Select, Prime, and Ultimate, all with different levels of access. So the very basic version of interactive webinars is available and it's Select. So that's only 12 events. So this is really useful for those companies that only have, a few events per year. So you get 12 that do not overlap. Of course, there's different capacities per room for all of these different levels. So this is the lowest one with 500 attendees. The next step up is Prime. You do have unlimited number of events. However, they cannot overlap each other. So that's where you see room licensing versus event licensing. That's where the unlimited number of events comes in. Your room capacity is a little bit higher here with 1,000 attendees. And then there's the ultimate package. So you actually get 2 rooms, meaning you can have up to 2 webinars running at any given time. And those are also unlimited. Again, the room capacity is 1,000 attendees. Also, you have to ensure that in the admin section of your instance, you've added users to actually be able to build interactive webinars. Anyone that is not included in that list of people cannot actually use the feature. Also, we have some different designs that you can incorporate, as I stated, into your interactive webinars. So you can design the rooms yourself, and you can actually brand them to fit your custom brand. And like everything, you want to be able to test your webinar before actually putting it on. So just note that when you do create a test, that is blocking a license credit. So just keep that in mind. We do have a tip here that if you are running a test, be sure to set it some date well into the future so you can run this test and then delete the test program so that you don't use one of those licenses. Very important to remember that especially if you have, those just 12 event licenses. Do keep in mind that when you are running a test, a lot of the major features are not available. So that's things like recording, engagement dashboards, on-demand tracking. Those features are going to be disabled. And up to 10 hosts or presenters can join the test event. So it is useful if you want to get together as a group to run through content before the actual event. So I will pass it over to Josh to give a demo. He's going to walk through his instance and kind of show the interactive webinars.
Perfect. Let me just share my screen here.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
All right, let's get hands-on. So this is Marketo, as I'm sure you're aware. This is the admin section. So we're going to start in the admin section so you can see just how to set up or check the licensing. Oh, great.
The sad face.
Let's try this again. Anyway, so if you go to the admin section, if you don't have admin access, then ask someone to give you access. But if you do have admin access, right here, you'll see interactive webinars, you should see. Here you can add users. So this gives them the ability to create interactive webinars. If the person's not here, they won't be able to do that. As far as I know, and for now, there's no limit to how many users you can add here, but it is different from the usual user access. So make sure the people you want to be able to edit, create interactive webinars and work on them have access here. It's as simple as just adding a user. Below that, you'll see the licensing. So as mentioned before, there's 3 license levels. There's Select, Prime, and Ultimate. And you'll be able to, it doesn't say those here, but it'll say your capacity. So you'll see here's 1,000 capacity and unlimited. So I'm on the Prime level. And you will see that here, if you are on the Select, you'll also see the 12 events and the number that you have already consumed as far as those credits. If you contact your salesperson or your Adobe rep, they can add capacity as needed as well. You can also click on this button here, and with that can request more capacity and send a request in. So that's all for the admin section. Let's jump into the actual interactive webinars. So as long as you have that license, you can create an interactive webinar program like you would any other program. Well, it starts off that way. Just give it a name, and then program type. I'm going to put event, and then channel. As soon as I select webinar, I'm going to see this option here that gives me interactive webinars. And then below would be your partner webinars, so your traditional webinars by a third party. But for now, I'll stick with interactive webinars. Click next. Now here's the webinar title, and the webinar title, where's your program names? Probably going to use naming conventions. Hopefully it's using naming conventions. Here, this is your publicly facing title for the webinar. So don't use naming conventions. Go ahead and put a publicly facing title. Pick your duration. This ranges from 30 minutes to I think 6 hours is the max. Yep, 6 hours. That's a long webinar, but so you pick your start time or date and time here, and then I can set a time zone here. Go ahead and set it in the future. If you're testing, I suggest setting this way out in the future, because if you forget to delete it, then you'll lose that credit, especially if you're on that 12 credit license. Set it way in the future, and that way you have time to delete it or use it for something else. And then for maximum audience, I'm just going to see the capacity that I have on my license, and I can select create. From there, I can see my webinar program is created. I'm going to see on the right here, if you click on this, it'll take you to the documentation and experience league, which is great. There's some great videos in there. You can go in depth in all the different sections. I recommend checking that out. You have these 2 links for creating landing page and email program. They're more just reminders, because there's nothing different between clicking these and right-clicking and adding an asset to your program, but it's nice to have it in one place. And then before we get into this left section, you'll notice the tabs are familiar but a little different. So the names of the tabs, the content is very similar to any other program you see in Marketo. However, these have the nice new interface. Hopefully, this interface comes to all of the program types in Marketo. I have no insider information, but maybe if someone from Adobe is on the call, they can confirm or deny that. Here it's nice if you have some trigger campaigns or something to set expirations for whenever the webinar is completed. You can go ahead and set expirations for those trigger campaigns. Setup is pretty standard, but again, this interface is much nicer. The tokens, you'll see you can now put into folders and even import from another program, which is really nice, can be a great time saver. And then members is going to be basically the same interface as every other program. Going back to overview, here we have this giant blue button, which will start the design of your webinar. And that'll take us into Adobe Connect, which is what this is all powered by. Below that, once we've designed our webinar, we can add co-hosts and add presenters. These people don't have to be inside your organization or even inside your Marketo instance. They can be anyone. They will receive, if you add them, they will receive a custom link so they can go ahead and join you in the webinar interface that we will see in just a minute. Below that, I can add the normal description and view dashboard. Right now, dashboard is going to be empty. We'll talk about that later, but it's going to show you after the event all of your engagement for that event, and that information is pretty great. So if I jump in and click design, I'm going to see I can start designing my room. So I can select a room. I can create a new room here or select one that I've already created. If I create new, I have templates. I can use templates that I've built, and we'll get into what that means, but it's different layouts inside of that. Or I can choose one of the standard templates that Adobe gives me. That's product showcase, thought leadership, workshop session. And what that means is these each have different layouts within them already set up that I can customize and use, but they're kind of with purpose built for these types of sessions. So if you're starting out new, I recommend picking one of those and then customizing it however you want. In my case, I'm going to jump over to a webinar I've already created here. So this would be the next screen. When you get here, it's kind of like, even though I'm editing my room and I'm still building it, it kind of goes through the whole as if you're joining it fresh. So actually joining the webinar in action. So when I click this and I go into the webinar, I'm going to get this little notification telling me I'm in standby mode, as was mentioned. So here, you see up to 10, as mentioned, up to 10 hosts and presenters can join. So you can get everyone together who's going to be on the call presenting and go through things, have your dry runs, and move things around, all that you need here, which is great. And then on the right-hand side here, you're going to see all of the layouts, as I mentioned. So each of these layouts are going to have different pods. These pods are the different elements or components that you can add to the screen for people to interact with. So that could be your video feed, or everyone's video, a chat. We'll get into all the options there. But the important part to know here in the layouts is that I can quickly switch between these layouts. And everyone in this call is going to see the new layout. So if I go into breakout rooms or review or the wrap up, I know all these things are set up and interact, which makes it much better for the webinar experience. For me, this is my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts. I have many favorite parts, I guess we'll go through. Because like you can see the handoff between, okay, slides, and now we're going to do a live demo, and now we're going to go into a poll. Organizing that in most webinar platforms is kind of, a little janky. With this, it's just a click of a button. We go into the next part. We go into the next part, and you can set it all up ahead of time, and it just flows, which is amazing. So say I want to create my own layout. What I don't have here is a layout for my presentation. So I can go ahead and do that. I can create a new layout, or I can duplicate an existing one. If I have one that's close to what I need, I can do that. But I'm going to start from scratch. And you can see I just get an empty canvas. I can go up to my pods section here and add different pods. And there are a lot of options. In fact, more than even you can see here. So we'll start with a share pod. This is going to be if you want to share your screen, a document, or a whiteboard. In this case, I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll just do that. I've got my sample presentation here. I'll add that in, and now I can see this. Unfortunately, I did a bad job with my presentation. It only has one slide, so it's given me some warnings about transitions. But if I had notes on this, they'd show up here. I can see my outline, which I can actually, it generates this all automatically based on the content of your slide. So if you have 100 slides in your deck, you can quickly search by the title here. If you needed to jump back to a slide, it makes it super useful. You also have just forward and back buttons here, so I can take people through the presentation. So maybe I want to, I mean, that takes up the entire screen. So maybe I want to make this a little smaller. Here, when you're setting up your pods, you have this great grid system. So maybe I want to add a chat to this. I can just use the existing chat. You don't have to create new pods. So whatever chat was going on in the introduction section and the review section, I can bring right into here instead of creating a new chat, or I can start a new chat. So again, this all snaps to this grid system. I can bring this up here, give it some more room. And then, yeah. So other pods that I have, notes just lets me put some notes, that's text, images, whatever I want on the screen to share. Files, I can share different files. I can add the presentation. So if people are like, oh, is the slide deck going to be shared afterwards? It's right there. Just click it, you have it. Things like that. Web links, I can link to different things. As you saw in today's session, people are, oh, there's these things in the slides. Can you share that in the chat? Well, in this, I can just have a whole section full of links, and you can go ahead and click them. And again, you can set this all up before your session and just have it flow. I can also just throw the attendees section here if I want that here. Again, just snaps to the grid system. Video is going to be the live video feed of anyone who's sharing their video. Chat, as I just showed. Now with this, you also have polls, Q&As, and quizzes. So you can set up a poll or just a general Q&A or a quiz. And what's great about these is that information lives beyond just this event. So there will actually be a custom activity in Marketo for each person when they interact with a poll, when they ask a question in the Q&A, or what they did on, actually, I'm not sure if quiz has it. Probably not. Not yet. Then you have a skip engagement dashboard for a second here. You have custom pods, which is a whole community of custom pods that you can bring in that other people have built. This is just a small subset, so you can search for something if there's something specific. If you are a developer or have access to developer, you can actually create your own pods, which makes this infinitely expandable, which is fantastic. Then from there, so we went over the presentations. Oh, last, you have this engagement dashboard, which you'll see. And here you see it says enable backstage. So what I'm doing is this area in backstage is only visible to the hosts and presenters. So here I can see the live engagement for my room. This is, if people are paying attention, if they're tuned out, what they're doing, this is a score that gives me. So I can see in real time how people are engaging. I can also put my speaker notes here, and then I can have a presenter chat here where I can speak with just the hosts, which makes it great for having a conversation off between just the presenters. Oh, can you jump in and do this? Whatever you need to do there. Now, say I'm in the middle of a presentation and I realize, oh, you know what? I want to change one of the poll questions, or I want to add a link to the wrap-up slide. But I'm in the middle, or my other host is in the middle of the presentation. How can I do that without like I said, if I click this and go to that wrap-up slide, everyone in that presentation, everyone in that webinar is going to go to that slide. So I don't want to do that. What I can do is go into this prepare mode. And if I click this, you'll see I get this light blue overlay. And then if I click in wrap up, you can see presentation still is highlighted in blue, but I get this outline around wrap up, and this little hammer and pencil, I think it is, shows above wrap up. And I can go ahead and here and make changes to whatever I need. I can add a link here. Oh, someone mentioned some documentation. I can go ahead and add a link here so people can get that when we hit the wrap up slide, because I know that's coming next. All I have to do is that. Excuse me. And then I click on that button again, and I'm back in the presentation. I'm where everyone is. So it's easy as that. I think that's it for the actual interface for Adobe Connect. As far as Adobe Connect, as far as creating these layouts for best practices, how to do this, the different components and maybe how they work. One thing I ran into when I was trying to research it last year when this first came out, I'm looking for, oh, how do I do this in interactive webinars? How do I do this in interactive webinars? You're better off searching for Adobe Connect, because that's what it's built on. Because while interactive webinars is new, Adobe Connect has been around for a long time, and there's a lot of resources out there. And in fact, I recommend checking out the official Adobe Connect YouTube channel, which has a million videos that are super helpful. So definitely check that out. If we go back to our webinar program, one of the best things about using this interactive webinars is that it's all native to Adobe, right? So first thing is, how do I get all of the attendee data back into Marketo? I don't have to do anything. It's already there. And then even beyond that, in most platforms you use, you get one data point. Did they attend or did they not attend? Which is great. It's a starting point. But this gives us so much more, and we can take a look at that. It's going to give us, if I jump in the flow first, actually, and show, Smart List. Under Webinar, under Events, and then Webinar, you can see it gives us these 5 custom filters and triggers that I can use in my Smart Campaigns to do follow-ups, to do just data maintenance and everything afterwards. Just the has attended event has so much information, and these are all going to be under custom constraints here. But you can see number of poll responses. So did they respond to the poll? Number of answered questions. That's questions that they asked that someone answered. And number of unanswered questions. So that they asked a question and no one got around to answering it. You can check this, and then I can trigger a follow-up. Hey, I saw you asked a question. We didn't get a chance to get to it. Do you want to have a call or something? Right? I can check live watch time. Did they attend for a minute and then log off, or were they there the whole time? I can see, the interest level and who I should follow up with. Number of CTAs clicked. So I mentioned I can add those links to my layouts. I can also track every time someone clicks those. So if they're calls to action, I know who to follow up with, what they clicked on, all of that, which is great here. Next, assets. So you can add files. Who went back and downloaded the presentation? Who downloaded the workbook that I included? I can trigger off of that and create follow-ups. Then event mode is on demand. So this works once the webinar is finished. It can become an on-demand webinar. So people who attend will show up as attended. If they don't attend and they watch on demand later, they will show up as attended on demand. However, they do both. They attend it live and then they come back and watch it on demand. They will just stay in attended. But I can trigger off of these, either filter or trigger off of whether the view in question is on demand or if it's live, the other option. Then watch duration. This watch duration is going to be for on demand. So I can see, did they watch it on demand? They watched the whole thing, or they come back in just 1 second and clicked off. Then, standard date, time, webinar title is, so you can, this will automatically populate when you add it. I don't know why it went away here, but so that you're targeting this specific webinar. And then date of activity, those standard constraints. So that's just on the attended events. So even on just attended event, we have so much more data. Then, as I mentioned, we can go into, we have 4 other options, which are as asked a question. So if they asked a question, we can trigger off whether it was answered or not. If they clicked a link, we can trigger off which link that they clicked. I did not add it here, but there. Downloads an asset, saying we can trigger off which asset that they've clicked and or downloaded, and then responded to a poll. We can trigger or filter off of which poll question they responded to and what their response was. So I could ask, what CRM do you use? And everyone who answers Salesforce, put them in a nurture for whatever, Salesforce or Dynamics, into Dynamics, anything like that. So those polls are not just, ephemeral and living just once in that webinar event. They live on, they can be used. This is actionable data that you're getting out of these webinar experiences, and that makes it super powerful. From there, we'll go to Design Studio, because there's a few other things. So once you've created your rooms and your templates, you're going to manage those from the Design Studio. So here you can see all of the templates that you've created. Here, I just have the standard ones and my one organizational one. So if you want to edit those so that they are all consistent in the future, you can edit it here. Same thing with the rooms. Once you create a room, you can go ahead and change which template it uses, things like that. And then if you want to get into really branding and things like that, I can go in here and set the logo. You'll notice in our room, there's an Adobe logo here. That's because I added it here. Sorry. I added it here. In the logo, I can set the colors. If I want to get super creative, I can make it super ugly. You can make this match your brand exactly. Basically every element in here, you can change the color. And then you can also, this intermediate screen, you saw this purple background when people are logging in. You can change this to whatever you want. You can change it to your branding, whatever image you want there. And then virtual video backgrounds, if you want to give people specific options for what backgrounds, you can use some of these Adobe Connect built-in ones, or again, upload a branded virtual background. And that's it. I will give it back to Adrian. There. Go back to this slide.
All right. I will. Yep. All right. So just going to go over a little bit of what Josh just mentioned, as well as some other things, and then wrap up, hopefully leaving time if there are any questions. So, one of the coolest parts, I think we say that about everything, is again, those triggers and filters. So you have a lot more data and custom activities that you can then trigger off of following the webinar or even during the webinar. It's really cool. So some use cases to use those triggers and filters are, adjusting scoring based on the attendance or engagement during the event. So that could have been if they downloaded a content or answered a poll question. You can also trigger sales follow-up based on those same events. And you have more contextually relevant, interesting moments as a result of these activities that you can track. So post-webinar analytics. So Josh touched a bit about on the dashboard. Here's some screenshots that you can see different data on just engagement on those different webinars. It's broken down by different types of reports that you can see. You can drill into event summaries, engagement, interactions, on-demand activity, and participant activity. So each of those breaks down either the webinar as a whole, or you can look at, participant data as far as what they interacted with in the webinar. So another really cool thing is Gen AI chapters and summaries. So following the event, you can actually generate some content. So either a summary, which creates like a text summary of your webinar, or chapter generation, which is a feature that kind of chops up your webinar into shorter chapters based on the content. So what's really cool about that is that you can then use that generated content and put it, on the landing page. Do want to add a tip here that you do have to accept the Adobe Gen AI terms before using this. So if you have not done that, you will not see this feature available. So wrapping up, some key takeaways is that interactive webinars tend to perform better. So going back to the issues that we talked about earlier, you want to have your audience more engaged, leading to more leads. And then, interactive webinars clearly gives you the tools to, track, build every point that you are going through when setting up a webinar. Interactive webinars, I think, makes it a lot easier. And, this automation, the end goal is to create more revenue for your company. So next steps, Josh did mention the Adobe Connect YouTube channel. Really cool. I'm going to check that out myself. You can set up and test interactive webinars in your own instance and also access today's recording and resources that we mentioned. So I will open it up for questions. I don't know if there were any either in the chat or the Q&A.
There are.
Okay.
There are. Yeah. No, thank you, Josh and Audrey. Really great. I learned a few things also seeing the demo. So it's been a while since I logged in and created something. So nice to see. I also did not know about the YouTube channel and checked it out this morning when I saw the link in the slides and was impressed by the detail of some of the walkthroughs and things there. A lot more than I expected. So really recommend checking that out. There are a few questions in chat. Let me find out the rest one. Okay, where to start? One question is about whether the Gen AI capabilities that you just mentioned, Audrey, whether there's extra cost for those, or it's just a matter of accepting the terms.
I don't believe so. Yeah, I think it is a matter of accepting the terms.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, that's the case as well for that one. There was another question about, it's quite an interesting one, and maybe it can open it around, but it was targeted to you, Audrey, about your experience with On24. But I think we can ask the panel, ask everyone, saying compared to other webinar platforms, like On24, GoToWebinar, however, do we see that there is some functionality from the interactive webinars that's maybe missing today that might, compared to what other platforms we've used in the past? We saw that there's quite some advantages of having the native and inbuilt tool, but external.
For me, I'll answer first. I think the only setback, and that's typically just for, depending on your package, is the capacity of the events. So I think if Adobe could maybe bump up those capacities, that'd be amazing. So that'd be what I'd say.
Yeah, I've got a few in mind, but Josh, maybe before that, have you got any compared to other webinar tools you've used with Marketo in the past?
Not that come to mind.
Okay.
I've been happy with all the new tools, so I haven't really noticed anything that was missing.
Yeah. Now, for me, as I said, I think there's a lot of better features and integrations, and the data transfer between them are not like I've seen before. So that is great. I think for some of the use cases that we have had, one is like with simultaneous translations and auto doing language translations underneath. I know for some people or markets that I've worked with, that's been a requirement. I believe this one's on the roadmap because I asked in our champion group recently about this, but also simu-live webinars. I don't think it has a lot of functionality for that. You can play a video and a recording, but it is very clear that it's a recording. It's not like a simulated live webinar in that way. I think those are the two. There is, I believe, 8 languages supported for user interfaces as well. So compared to other tools that I've used in the past and some of the clients I've worked with who had requirements for more languages, those are a few limitations that I've seen so far.
I think that the one that I think you talk to Adobe and expand the capacity is these simultaneous events. So even if you're at that package, it's 2 simultaneous. I think you can go above that, but I haven't gone through that process. And I know we have a client who has over 100 webinars a month, and that would be nerve-wracking to try to schedule it without any overlaps. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great one. Cool. Still a lot more questions coming in as I go. There's more coming in as we answer one, a couple more come in. I think this is quite a good one. I've not tested it myself, but there's a question from Kay that says, can we include interactive webinars into engagement programs? I'm just nodding yes. I guess it's the same as we do with any other. I think that core event program is quite the same. It's just the event partner that you connect that event program to, right? So,
and then the great thing is where the link that you use to attend the event becomes the on-demand link. So even as long as you keep that on-demand content there, it just becomes evergreen, right? It just automatically becomes an on-demand content.
Yeah. Elise has a great question on the kind of the production side, being a producer for the webinar, but whether when you're in that backstage area, can the presenters and panelists, can they communicate privately before going live? I think we had this in the platform we use now. There's no let participants enter. Do you know whether that's a functionality? You can keep people in, I guess, the holding room until you're live or collaborate separately.
I'm trying to remember. Yes, because you can let them into the event.
Yeah, so, we have that customizable wait screen. So so I think that would be at least the way it's. You align as a panel and say, everyone ready to go? Let's let everyone in while they're in the holding room for their. What else have we got? Yeah, so at least there's another question. I think Josh, this will be one that you probably know, but about when you're working within marketing activities, are you able to clone the interactive webinar program similar to cloning our email default program types?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I think that the core the core event program type is no different. It's more the event partner that you connect to. So again, building your whole program template with the invites, post-event communications, all of that is the same as it would be. Now you're just getting more connected webinar platform and data in. And second last question. One from Mohammed here. It says, currently we have the Prime license. Do we have to purchase to get unlimited license? Yeah, that would be something you will need to talk to your Adobe account manager for. I believe you don't need the full Ultimate to take the Webinar Ultimate. I think you can kind of select that or upgrade your Webinar only package without upgrading the rest of your Marketo license. But that's a specific conversation you best have with your account team from Adobe on that one for there. And what I think is the last question, at the moment, in the Q&A pod that I have, I'll check the chat in a second, but we have one from Kirsty that is saying, What does everyone have the option for webinars within? But does everyone have the option for webinars within Marketo? I'm assuming we're talking about, is that there? And I believe the answer is yes, that the interactive webinars, regardless whether you have the Prime, Select, Ultimate package, I think those are the three ways that you have procured your core Marketo instance. There is some inclusion of then the interactive webinars in that, and most likely it's the entry level by default, the 12 sessions package for that. So it is there for you to try. And I believe by now it should also be rolled out to most instances. I think it was kind of launched 2024, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even earlier. So by now every instance should have that. And again, if you don't see if you're the admin of your instance, you don't see the interactive webinars options in your admin configurations, I would also then suggest to reach out to your account manager from the Adobe side, and they can check that and maybe make sure that it gets pushed to your instance.
Ask your admin to give you the license.
Yeah. Then one question popped in right now from Ashwin, just asking about what are the metrics we can display on the Marketo sales insights from interactive webinars.
From sales insights.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's less metrics, but more the triggering off those actions.
You can show attends events, response to a poll, answer this question, clicks link, and downloads an asset. So all of those that we covered.
So it would be maybe not a metric of the duration specifically, but maybe you can have your interesting moment that said, when you say, let's create an interesting moment for event attendance, maybe you only want to do that for people that attended more than 50%, whatever you deem as enough attendance to make that legitimate to consume the content.
Trigger off that and then set that interesting moment.
Yes, so I think that would be the approach there. And I think that gets us through all the questions we received. Quite a few questions coming in from the live Q&A.
Great question.
Yeah, one last one. Okay, just in before we wrap up. Kay says, I need some help with my smart campaigns. Do you know where I can seek for assistance? And Kay, that's specifically for event programs, I'm assuming, for this. Sorry, Josh, would you like to?
Nation or Experience League, right?
Yeah. I think in the Experience League, there's also some pre-existing program templates that you can import. So if you're looking for that, so already create the interactive program. So this is for your interactive webinar program. I would say, again, the interactive webinar part of it is an additional feature. I think your default event program, how you're managing your invites, registration, reminders to attend, post-event communication, all of that is not different. It's more the experience that you can create during the webinar and the data that you get back into Marketo. That is the huge change with the interactive webinars. So starting with that program template that you can import from Adobe out of the box would be one way if you're looking for kind of advice or best practices or a starting point for your webinar program. Okay, then I think that gets us to the end of our session and Q&A. Thank you all for attending. I hope you learned as much as I did from this. Thank you, Josh and Audrey, again for being great panelists for that. And I hope everyone has a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.